Hi, I'm Cheryl Good, inspirational speaker. And if you tried to find us a little bit earlier, let me say the excuse of all excuses, which is technical difficulties. But we're here now, and if you are, or if you're seeing us after we are live, thank you. So this is the first video in a series called People Who Inspire. And as an inspirational speaker, I'm always seeking inspiration. And some of that I can source from my own life. And yet I find when there are people who inspire me, then I'm more full.
Yeah.
And then I have a way to reflect as far as, well, what direction might I want to go?
Ooh, okay. Well, I'm so honored to be here, Cheryl. I think it's awesome that I'm an inspiration.
So this is unscripted, and Susie does not know what questions I'm going to answer or ask her, so she may or may not answer. And of course, if she's a no to a question, she's going to say no, and then we have a chance to talk about healthy boundaries.
I'll probably say yes, though. I'm pretty much an open book.
So one of the things that inspires me when I think about you is I think about your dedication to your work. And Susie and I both live in Sedona. And whether you know anything about Sedona or not, I will tell you that people flock here who want to have a spiritual experience.
Yeah.
And that can look like many, many things. It could be a vortex tour. It could be buying a crystal. It could look like a lot of things. And yet, when I think about Susie, I think about someone who is so far beyond a casual crystal buy and a vortex tour.
Thank you, Cheryl. There's a little bit more depth, maybe, than a...
Yes.
Yeah.
So, share a story, because we humans love stories. Tell the story of how you started what you call the Creation Temple.
Well, as with everything else in my life, it was a message from my soul, a message from my guidance. Do this. And I don't know, usually when I get those messages, I don't know what it's going to turn into, how it's going to grow or not grow, what it's going to become or not become. I don't know. I just follow. I just follow what I'm told to do. And so it was one of those. Gather a group of people together and do the work together on an ongoing basis. Teach them how to do their inner work, come together as a group and do service work for the collective energy. So that's what we've been doing for over 3 years now.
So 3 years.
Yeah, over 3 years. Like 3.5 by now, really. Yeah.
So I was reflecting, thank you for that, and I was reflecting that your work and my work, there's no job description.
Not really.
We can't find...
I try to give myself a job description. I mean, because, when you're an entrepreneur, you have to give yourself a label so you can market yourself. And so the best that I've been able to come up with is spiritual guide. Because I guide people on their spiritual path and their spiritual journey. So it's a label that fits and it's a label that works. But it's so much more than that,
Well, it is so much more than that.
Yeah.
And talk about the Creation Temple specifically, because when you talk about gathering a group of people together, what that looks like now is what you call the Creation Temple.
Yeah. We get together every week. We're live via video every single week. Every once in a while I give myself a week off. But honestly, they're my soul family, and I love meeting with them. And we all feel better after the meeting because, we're all sensitive beings who get together. And with the chaos that's happening in the world, it's a grounding point. It's a centering point. So we get to come together and share in our united vision of restoring heaven on earth.
Mm-hmm.
And the most recent gathering, we did some work with disintegrating the coronavirus.
How important and timely.
Yeah.
So share a little bit of that.
Yeah. Well, I woke up yesterday morning, and that's what guidance said. If they're willing, do a service work for the collective. Do a service work for humanity.
Mm-hmm.
And so I proposed it to them. They said yes, we're willing. And so what it was a 17-minute meditation where we focused our collective energies on breaking apart the virus, neutralizing it, transmuting it. And I have to give big credit to one of my members. Afterwards, he was like, I really prefer working with instead of against.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, I feel like we should do the whole thing all over again because I was having fun with it. I got out my laser light gun and I was like shooting the virus, But the point he was making is that we can work with the energy of the virus,
Mm-hmm.
transmute it so that it's doing something good for the planet instead of harming life on the planet.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I believe is possible.
Mm-hmm.
So I actually, most of what we do in the Creation Temple, I repurpose the meditations and everything, and I provide the lower paying tier members, I provide them with the meditations and the DNA activations. But this one guidance said, make this available for everyone, make this free, because we need as much power behind this as possible. And so it is now free on creationtemple.com for all free members. So you have to create a free membership, but that's simple and easy. You create your free membership and then you can access on the free meditations.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. So you really have a sense, and here's another reason I inspire you, that you are here to be in service.
Yeah, for sure. I'm laughing, I guess, because for me, there's just no other way.
Mm-hmm.
It's why I'm here. It's what I'm here to do, and I'm doing it to the best of my ability. But really, there's no other way.
So what do you do on the days that you don't feel like being in service?
Well, sometimes I do it anyway, and if there's no present need or no, how do I say it? If there's nothing calling me in that moment, then it's self-care.
Mm-hmm.
And I have to say self-care is service,
Mm-hmm.
because when I'm taking care of myself, then I can continue to show up in service. But if it's just that I don't feel like being in service, it's not a voice I listen to, because I'm here to be in service. So I don't know how to not.
I want to go back to what you said. You said self-care is service.
100%.
So I want to say that again. Self-care is service.
Self-care is service. Because I believe that this life is not a sprint, it's a marathon. And so if I want to continue to be in service in 10 years, and 20 years, and 40 years, and 100 years, hey, why not?
Mm-hmm.
If I want to continue to be in service, then I have to continually fill my cup. And so I have to take care of myself, have to take care of my physical body, have to take care of my mental health, have to take care of my emotional body. It all needs my attention and care.
Mm-hmm. So give me a sense of what your self-care routine might be for a day.
Okay. By the way, every time you do that, you step on the thing and it moves the whole thing.
All right. So this is in motion.
We're doing a video in motion. During the day, well, when I wake up, I have my water bottle. And this is probably about 27 ounces of water. I drink the whole thing, just guzzle it. And then I lay back down for a half hour. And this is self-care for my lymph system. This is self-care for my hydration. And during that half hour, I meditate, I presence myself to the day, I ground. Hopefully, I'm still working on the grounding thing. Man, these energies. Whew. Have you been feeling it this past week?
I can't even name what I've been feeling.
Yeah.
I simply keep going
Yeah.
and moving with it. And then, as you
I
have talked
understood
about,
that.
really realizing that these are extraordinary times.
Yes.
They're extraordinary times. And
Yeah.
to let myself be tired
Yeah.
when I'm tired.
Yeah.
Because like you, I'm very much to be in service.
Yeah.
That is what I'm here to do.
Yeah.
That's what
That's
gets
why we
me
resonate.
to get this video going, is
Yeah.
that I like to be inspired, and that's part of my self-care.
Awesome. I love it. Yeah. So I meditate and I bring myself present with the day. I come back into my body if I've left during the night, things like that. And then I get up and I stretch and I do some movement. I jump on I have like a mini trampoline, a rebounder. I do that for at least 5 minutes. Again, more self-care for my lymph because that's an issue for me. And after the stretching and exercising, then breakfast, taking care of the physical needs. And then breaks throughout the day, instead of sitting at my
Right.
computer all day,
Right.
or instead of seeing clients all day, I break it up so that I'm, able to recharge. And big for me is going out into the land. You can't see it, you guys don't have this amazing view right here. We're looking at baby sugarloaf, and it just looks like chocolate right now because it's raining and the rocks are all wet. It's amazing. Getting out on the land, my bare feet whenever possible, and charging with the land, giving to the land, receiving. Yesterday on my hike, I had this realization that she takes such good care of me. She, the land of Sedona, takes such good care of me because I always bring an offering with me. And my offering is my songs, my voice.
Oh.
So I will literally go out, climb up somewhere, and just start toning, just I'll just do that with the intention of spreading it around Sedona, just that love and the peace for the people here and the tourists and everything. And I had a realization that this is a gift that I bring to the land, and so she gives me her gifts in return, and it's a beautiful synergy, and it's a way for me to refill. So even though I'm giving, I'm still refilling at the same time because of that symbiotic relationship with the land.
Giving is receiving, and receiving is giving.
Yeah.
So if you just started watching with us, this is the first episode of People Who Inspire, and I'm the interviewer, and Susie is the person that inspires me. Something that I've noticed about you, and I have known you for a number of years now, is that you have a deep sense of integrity.
Thank you. That means everything to me. You know it. You know that means everything to me. Thank you. Yeah.
And even when there's been challenges,
She's seen me through a lot of challenges. Thank you. She's seen me through a lot.
yeah. Well, and I've also witnessed that even when you want to turn into the direction of maybe this is not fair, or I didn't ask for this, that you really
I didn't create this.
I didn't create this. And yet, if you started to go in that direction, I see that you would pull yourself in the other direction.
Yeah.
And that actually is really impressive, because it is inevitable that there are going to be the fluctuations. There are going to be those...
Life happens.
Yeah, stuff happens.
Yeah.
And there's going to be a lowering of frequency. And yet, you have the ability to raise yourself, and that you do that for other people. I'm curious what you do for self-care, and that's for the people who are watching now, or who may be watching later, is that I'm curious because I just got some ideas from Susie. Especially going out and singing to the land.
Yeah.
Or in my case, I could play Native American flute
Yes.
to the land.
Yeah.
So again, you inspired me. So I do want to go back a little bit because something else that I know about you and that inspires me is that you grew up in a particular faith tradition.
Yes. Yeah, Mennonite, we can say it.
Mennonite,
yeah.
and that you're living a life that may be puzzling and confusing.
Yeah, very.
So if you would speak about that.
Yeah. Ooh, well, I always have to say whenever I speak about this, I want to give honor and respect to the traditions in which I was raised, and give gratitude to my parents and my family for how I was raised. It's still very close to my heart, even though my life has taken a different direction in some ways. There are some ways in which it's still very close to those foundational principles. So there are 3 tenets in the Mennonite faith. One is living a simple life, living a life of service, and living a nonviolent life. So we're pacifists. And those 3 things are still very much a part of me. You know, my life isn't that fancy. Yes, I live in Sedona, and I'm truly, truly blessed to be here, but it's not that, you know, it's not that fancy. I'm not a big war person, and life of service, like you mentioned in the beginning. So those 3 things are still very much part of my foundation, but there are some differences. I channeled Prime Creator. I channeled the dragons. I wrote a book about dragons, and in my parents' view, I'm channeling the devil. I'm working with demons. That's a very harsh contrast, if you will. Obviously, in my experience, the energies I bring through are loving and full of light. You know, there's nothing demonic about them, but that's their perspective on things. And so it's very different. The way I live my life, the way I help people, the way I serve, it is different than how I was raised in a lot of ways.
So I met your parents, and they are lovely, lovely people.
Yeah, they're so awesome.
They absolutely live what you have described to me.
Yeah, they're full of integrity also. Yeah, they're on their path. They walk their talk. Yeah.
So how do you reconcile? What's the process you go to or have gone through and maybe continue to go through as these parts of the past still have an influence on the present?
Well, our meeting point is our hearts. So very early in my awakening, I had this understanding that they're on their path, I'm on mine, and my role is not to try to be an evangelist about my new understandings and my new perspectives of life. My role is to simply love them. And so that's very early on. That's what I worked with. That's what I practice. I'm just going to show up and love them as best I can. And by me bringing that love, they respond to that. And we have a beautiful, loving relationship.
Which really is extraordinary from both your parents and from
I give them a lot of credit.
Because I'm a parent, and believe me, if I think something is potentially threatening the well-being of my now adult children, that does activate a part of me.
Yeah.
And here's a fun fact that I learned. That once you are a parent, once you are the prime caregiver of an infant, the amygdala, that part of the brain that processes feelings and fear, permanently changes. Oh, it doesn't. I mean, that explains so much for me.
That's interesting.
Because I noticed that I would get activated.
Yeah.
That usually irrational fears around my son's well-being would come up, and I happened to watch this series on Netflix called Babies, and they're scanning brains
Yeah.
of caregivers.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because it's not just mothers. If it's a gay couple, that's a male couple,
Okay.
the one who takes the most care of the infant, his brain changes
Oh,
too.
fascinating.
I
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
I know.
I give my parents a lot of credit because they really have done their inner work around letting me go and letting me be on my path. They don't like it, they don't approve of it, but they don't try to stop me.
Mm-hmm.
And that's really huge. One of the best things, the sweetest things my dad had ever said to me was, it was when I was first having the conversation with them about how I believe differently now and how I have new ways of looking at life. And he said, well, we don't agree with what you're telling us, but we won't kick you out of the family. You're always welcome. You can hear him saying that, right?
I can. You got the pacing, you got the thoughtfulness, the simplicity.
Benefits of being an empath.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was just, I totally could have taken that a certain way, but I knew what he was saying. I felt his heart in that moment, and I was just like, yeah, thank you, Dad. That means everything.
Because it's the tribe.
Yeah.
I mean, it can feel like life or death.
Well, and Mennonite's pretty close to Amish in some ways, and I do have Amish heritage also in my blood lineage. And the Amish actually do excommunicate you.
Right.
They do kick you out of the tribe. So he was saying that in reference to that, like, we're not going to excommunicate you. You still can be part of the family. He invites me to Christmas every year. Bless his heart. Yeah. It's just too cold where they live. I just can't.
Self-care.
Self-care. That's another story. Yeah. We had a massive conversation this past summer, which I shared with you, I think. My soul decided that we needed to have a conversation about my mission. And even though we've sort of done that other times, apparently needed to do it again. So, because I listened to my soul, I asked my parents if they would sit down with me and talk about my soul mission, and they agreed. And it was one of the hardest conversations of my life, because I knew that there wasn't going to be an outcome that felt good for both parties. I knew that it wasn't going to change anything in terms of what they believe or what I believe, but I needed to have the conversation because, and I'm sharing this because I think it's relevant for anyone who ventures off the path, differently than how they're raised. Basically what was happening in that conversation was I was sitting with the church, and the church is what had taken my life every lifetime when the mission failed. So essentially I'm sitting with my loving parents who are also representing the people that have killed me every lifetime. So it was this massive polarity contrast. And it was just a really weird thing to experience in my body, because I'm sitting there, every cell in my body is just shaking so hard. Like, if I speak about this, they're going to kill me. But knowing these are my loving parents, they're not going to kill me. But feeling in my body, they're going to kill me anytime now. Any second now, they're going to take my life. And so it was just this crazy polarity that I was experiencing, but what it really did for me was it set me free. To face my biggest fear, being killed for my mission. And to come through it alive. I'm free. Now I can write 10 more books about dragons if I want.
As you're talking about that experience, it sounds multidimensional.
Oh.
It's like you were processing a huge bandwidth.
Yeah, massive.
Huge.
Yeah.
And your parents maybe consciously did not know that this is what was happening. Yeah. So in essence, you're holding space for yourself. You're holding space for your parents.
Yes. I'm holding space for all of the people in my lineage who went before and who come after.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Another reason you inspire me.
Thank you. Yeah.
So there's a lot of nuggets. And for whoever watches this, to take her situation and find something in your life, because there is that moment where you had to be in your integrity, you had to be in your power, and you had to speak the truth of who you are.
Yeah.
So I did want to bring up one other part of your past.
Great. Bring it.
So you moved through an illness. And like many people, including myself, I was brought to my, maybe brought to my soul, I was going to say to my knees.
Yeah.
Because my physical body was exhibiting symptoms that seemed that there was no 3D way to move it. It didn't matter what homeopathic remedy or Western medicine test, or it just there was not information and there was not resolution.
Yeah.
So that's my story to tell, how I moved to fullness of health. I want to hear yours.
How long do we have, Cheryl? I'll give an abbreviated version because it's always ongoing, and it taught me how to listen to my body, and it taught me that the body, the physical symptoms are messages from the body that tell me there's something you need to address, Susie, there's something you need to look at here. So my body started breaking down actually when I was like 14 or 15. I didn't know it at the time because it manifested as this severe hormonal just imbalance, and they put me on Prozac and that helped, and so it just sort of moved on and didn't really think about it after that until my early 20s. I kept getting really bad sinus infections over and over, and I didn't want to go to a regular doctor. It's like, I don't want to take antibiotics. I feel like there's a better way. So I found a holistic doctor, and when I very first met him, he looked into my eyes and he said, "You have chronic fatigue syndrome." It turned out this was his specialty. Divine orchestration guided me to him. And I ended up staying in his clinic for 3 months. And even with all of that, I was still somewhat in denial. Like, I can keep going, I can charge through this, I can power through it, kind of, that kind of mindset. And obviously that didn't work. I really didn't have a life. I had a full-time job and I was independent and all those things, but I didn't have a life. I would come home from work and just crash, just couldn't really do anything. Found an acupuncturist when I was 27, and he said to me, "We'll know whether this helps you or not within 6 treatments." Well, don't you know, treatment number 6, I'm on his table, and I had this flashback, and I realized I don't have chronic fatigue syndrome. Just everything in my body was like, yeah, you don't have this. It's healed. And it was a literal light bulb moment. And I'm so blessed to have that moment. And then I'm so blessed to have the 15 plus years after that moment of digging deep and doing that really tough inner work. Because it showed me we can have transformation just like that. And we can also have transformation where you're doing the steady inner work. And you don't always get to choose which way it happens, but both are possible.
I'm so glad you spoke about that, because I've had both. I had the moment where everything changed and suddenly symptoms absolutely vanished. What I didn't know is that then there has to be the consistent daily practice. And for me, meditation was the breakthrough. Meditation was, I had a spontaneous healing.
During meditation?
In a meditation.
That's freaking awesome.
And then, because at that point I didn't have a regular practice, the symptoms quickly came back. And that's when I realized
that's interesting.
that I had to go deep deep
Yeah.
that I'm so glad I got the miracle,
Yeah.
because I know that's possible, and I
Yeah.
know that's possible for every human being. And now what I know is that it is the consistent daily practice of
100%.
meditation that keeps me in a place of somewhat balance. I mean, this is, again, as we talked about,
We're in dynamic balance always.
this is a time to be alive, because
That's a good way to say it. Yes. Fully alive, experiencing the chaos, experiencing the joys, experiencing it all.
there's so many things
so many things.
that give us an opportunity to I love the term dynamic balance,
Yeah.
because it is an ongoing sense of
Yeah.
when do I move forward, and then when do I retreat a little bit, regroup, and move through. So the final thing that I wanted to talk about was, you have spoken about yourself in the past as someone who really used their masculine energy.
Yes. Now we're getting to the good stuff.
And that in the past, that's how you
Yeah.
maneuvered.
Yeah.
And then talk about that, because there were some twists and turns with that.
Yeah. So basically, when I was 5 and my brother was born, he got all the attention, and I no longer, as the baby of the family, I was no longer the baby of the family, so I no longer got the attention. And so subconsciously, I'm pretty sure what I did was I decided I needed to be like a boy so I could get the attention again. And so from the time that I was 5 years old onward, I adopted the masculine way of being. Achieving, very focused, very mission-oriented, very driven. I'm still all those things, but the way that I accomplish and the way that I achieve has shifted. And a huge awakening for me around that was the dissolving of my partnership. And in the dissolving, what happened after that, the realization that I'm not supported by this masculine energy like I thought I was. If I want to be fully supported by the sacred masculine, I need to embody the sacred feminine to an equal degree. To the degree that I want to be supported, I have to be in my sacred feminine essence and energy.
So what did that look like for you? Because here's the thing.
Yeah.
If you're looking at Susie, you'd be like, she's got sparkles on, and
She's a woman.
and she's got sparkly things all over her. And
That's just the fairy part of me. That's not masculine or feminine.
And then
I know what you're saying. I look like I'm a female and I'm in my feminine.
Right.
Yeah. What that looked like was pulling back in my business, pulling back in my life, just stopping doing everything. Mm-hmm. I spent massive amounts of time in nature, just trusting that the money would come in, trusting that I would have everything that I needed, just really changing the way I did everything. And it was hard, and it still is to some degree, because my default mode is still the masculine. Mm-hmm. That's still my default mode. That hasn't changed. I'm working on it, but I still if I go into my default mode, I'm in my masculine energy. Mm-hmm. So it was a long practice of really pulling back and letting life take care of me, and letting myself receive unconditionally. And I want to speak to that because that's really important, whether you're male or female, whether you're in your masculine or feminine energy. Receiving unconditionally means that you receive regardless of how your receiving is going to be received or perceived, regardless of what happens after you receive. Sometimes when you receive, then the person that gave is like, oh, now I want something back from you, but that wasn't part of the original discussion or agreement. And I've had a lot of experiences in my life where I'm good at receiving, but then I'm scared of what happens next because it, gets taken away or the energy changes or whatever. And so I've been practicing receiving unconditionally. And for me, that means being more centered with my feminine energy, like the Divine Mother. The Divine Mother doesn't care what you do after she receives from you.
Mm-hmm.
She's in her sovereign energy. She's in her center. And that's been a big practice for me. And then also, you asked what I did. I started working with my womb. I started journaling and asking my womb questions. And because I'm a channel, it's fairly easy for me to turn on different channels, to open different channels. So I opened the channel to the voice of my womb. And I was like, what do you want to tell me? What do you have to say? I'm so sorry I haven't been listening to you. What do you want to share with me? And she told me all this really amazing, powerful, juicy stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I in the moment was just blown away, like, wow, I have this as a part of me and I haven't been using it.
Well, and that's so parallel to my work, which is supporting people into coming into the fullness of their sexual energy, which is their life force energy, which is the energy that creates all of life.
Yeah.
So when you're communicating with your womb, you're creating with life. You're communing with life.
Yeah.
I mean, that's, as feminine bodied people, we can choose to take in life, gestate it, move it out. Sometimes it's a human. More often, it's that we're recreating and juicing up our own life.
Yeah. And that's the way I'm using it. I don't plan on having other little humans come out of me. So the creation energy that's coming out of me is my service work and my mission. But the accessing my womb as such a powerful part of myself, and as a part of myself that has so much wisdom, I feel like, I've probably just scratched the surface of it, because she's so deep. There's so much there. She's so rich.
She's the stuff of life.
Yeah.
I mean, she's what nurtures life.
Yeah.
So she's going to be hugely intelligent.
Yeah. And it's going to be hugely ongoing. Like, I'm never going to get to a stopping point where it's like, oh, I've got it all figured out now, or I've embodied all of my feminine essence. It's just gonna go on forever. Yeah.
So I've been inspired once again by you.
Thank you so much.
And have so very much enjoyed this conversation. And what I'm hoping is that anyone who watches is inspired as well. That is the intention of this series. Susie, where can people find you?
Oh, everywhere.
Yes, she's everywhere.
Instagram @Creation Temple, Facebook Creation Temple group, Creation Temple page. Susie Beiler is my profile. 4 websites: susiebeiler.com, creationtemple.com, dragonspeak.com, 2 S's in the middle. And that's where you'll find my children's book. And the newest one, SedonaRebirthingRetreats.com, because I am a specialist in helping people rebirth.
I want all of that. And that's so feminine. Like, I want all of it.
We can have it all.
We can have it all.
We can have it all.
So Susie will put all of that information in the comment section.
Sure.
And there will be another episode of this next week. Thank you so much for spending some time with us.
Yeah. Stay inspired.